Imagine being told that the solution to our economic challenges isn't tied to bigger budgets, larger subsidies, or increased government control, but to something simpler and far rarer, a shift in perspective. What if the real answer lies in pausing to consider what isn't immediately visible? Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're unpacking Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, a timeless classic that remains strikingly relevant in today's world. If you're ready to challenge some of the biggest economic misconceptions and explore how decisions resonate throughout our lives, let's get started. The central idea. When you hear economics, you might imagine complicated charts, detailed graphs, or dull debates. Hazlitt completely upends that image. His central message is straightforward. Good economics means thinking beyond short-term effects and considering both immediate and long-term impacts on everyone involved, not just those in the spotlight. In essence, don't evaluate a policy solely based on its immediate results. Don't assume that only the visible beneficiaries matter. Always ask, who is paying for this? What are the hidden costs? What will happen later? Hazlitt explains that many popular economic ideas fail because they focus exclusively on the visible, the easily observable. But in doing so, they ignore the unseen effects that are just as important. Once you adopt this mindset, you'll begin to notice patterns. Policies like stimulus checks, subsidies, or public works projects are often touted as quick fixes but come with hidden costs that aren't as apparent. The broken window fallacy. Hazlitt starts with a memorable story to illustrate his key point, the broken window fallacy. Picture a kid smashing a shop window. A crowd gathers and rationalizes that the broken window is actually good for the economy because it gives business to the glassmaker. On the surface, it sounds logical, money is flowing, there's economic activity. But here's what people fail to see. The shopkeeper now has to spend money on repairing the window. That money can no longer be used to buy new shoes, hire staff, or invest in his business. The shoemaker, who might have gained a customer, instead has lost an opportunity. The takeaway? No new wealth was created, it was merely redirected. Hazlitt calls this flawed thinking the broken window fallacy. He points out how this line of reasoning infects claims like wars boost economic growth. Natural disasters create jobs. Government spending inherently leads to prosperity. If destruction truly generated wealth, society could stimulate endless growth by simply smashing things, but we all know that's absurd. Government spending, seen versus unseen. Hazlitt makes it clear he isn't advocating for eliminating government altogether, rather, he emphasizes the need to recognize both sides of the equation. Take any example. For every public sector job created, there are private sector jobs that never came to exist. For every dollar spent on stimulus packages, there's either a taxpayer or a future borrower footing the bill behind the scenes. For every subsidy granted, someone, often taxpayers, bears the cost indirectly. In Hazlitt's words, we see only the direct beneficiaries but we fail to notice those who shoulder the sacrifice. When government proudly announces, say, $5 billion injected into job creation or a new subsidy program launched, we're shown only the benefits. What remains hidden are the foregone opportunities, businesses that didn't start, workers who weren't hired, investments that stalled because resources were diverted elsewhere. Public works and job creation. Infrastructure projects like roads and bridges can be valuable when they address real societal needs. But Hazlitt warns against elevating job creation above achieving genuine value. Yes, we see workers laboring on construction sites and new infrastructure taking shape. What we don't see are the private sector projects that could have been realized with those diverted resources. Nor do we notice the tax burdens placed on everyday people to fund such initiatives. It boils down to this: Hazlitt isn't against government work itself, he simply argues for prioritizing projects with long-term value, not merely those that create jobs for visibility. Subsidies and special interests. Subsidies for farms, businesses, or industries are widespread and often justified as beneficial. But Hazlitt critiques their long-term effects. Every subsidy aids one group, yet always at another's expense, typically taxpayers or consumers down the line. His question is simple: does this policy create sustainable value for society as a whole or just temporarily benefit a select group? Real economic growth thrives on innovation and competitiveness, rewarding efficient efforts that people willingly support with their spending choices, by shielding inefficiency through subsidies or catering. The role of profit. Profit often gets criticized, commonly perceived as a symbol of greed. However, Hazlitt argues otherwise, seeing profit as both a signal and an incentive. It communicates to businesses and society at large that a particular product, service, or resource holds value. When profits disappear, it's the market's way of signaling that the demand has waned, and resources should be redirected elsewhere. Profit is not simply about enriching a few, it serves a broader purpose, channeling resources toward what people truly need and value. Inflation, the hidden tax. Next, we come to inflation, which Hazlitt describes as a silent tax. When governments print excess money or engage in overspending, the ripple effects are clear. Prices rise. Savings lose purchasing power. Wages lag behind the cost of goods. Borrowers benefit while savers and wage earners suffer. The hardest hit are often retirees on fixed incomes, workers living paycheck to paycheck, and conscientious savers who are trying to plan for the future. While sound monetary policy may lack appeal in flashy headlines, its importance is undeniable for the stability of everyday life. The big takeaway and its modern-day relevance. Hazlitt's overarching message can be distilled into a simple principle: every economic decision involves trade-offs. The essential questions we must ask are: who benefits? Who bears the cost? And what are the longer-term implications? Fast forward to today. Think about stimulus checks, housing policies, inflation, bailouts, and subsidies. Hazlitt's insights could just as easily apply to these modern issues. He doesn't argue against all government intervention but emphasizes the need for economic transparency, acknowledging costs, addressing unintended consequences, and considering far-reaching effects. True prosperity isn't achieved by merely redistributing wealth but by creating it through innovation, efficiency, savings, and functioning markets. What's the takeaway here? Look beyond short-term gains. Consider what lies beneath the surface. Question every action: who is paying, and what's the hidden price?